and welcome back. This is KrazyBatLady. Today I want to show you how to play Ayaka in Genshin Impact. She's one of my favorite characters to use. She's really good at freezing enemies forever, and also you can run some pretty crazy meld teams with her. I'll show you her best teams, artifacts, weapons, how to play, and some really helpful tips. Whether you were rolling for her on her rerun or you already have her, hopefully you'll learn something new in this video. So let's get right into it, starting with the talents. She skills with crit damage, so that's something to keep in mind. Her normal attacks, a lot of people say these aren't very powerful, but I think her normal attacks are pretty strong. Especially her charged attack. She attacks really fast. Her charge attack hits 3 times and only costs 20 stamina, which isn't too bad, all things considered, as it has pretty high modifiers. For comparison's sakes, if you look at Kaching's charge attack, it actually takes 25 stamina. And if you add it all up, it's not as high of modifiers, as it only hits twice. And this is crowned, so it is 1 level higher, so yeah. Also, not to mention that they are cryo infused. So her elemental skill is just a big AoE cryo burst. Don't underestimate this, because it's actually quite strong if used properly. You can do some crazy stuff with it. Like, boom. That's just from an elemental skill. I mean, yeah, it required some setup, but you get the idea. Her, dashing skill, it's kind of like Mona's, except a lot better. You can cross water with it, and you turn all of your normal attacks into cryo attacks. Like, you infuse your weapon with cryo. And also, you put cryo onto enemies when you dash into them. So that's really nice, and this is really good, and this is what makes her the best character for freeze teams right here. It does take some stamina, but there is a skill that helps you regain stamina as well. Now for her burst, Kamisato Art Sumetsu. This is where a lot of her damage is going to come from. This ability is crazy. It hits about 20 times if positioned correctly, and then it explodes at the end. It has really high modifiers, and yeah, pretty damn good. You just want to make sure that you have grouped up enemies or you're hitting a boss, because a lot of the times at least a couple of the hits will whiff, but even then it's still a ridiculous amount of damage. Alright, so her first passive skill makes it so that when you hit enemies with your elemental skill, your normal and charge attacks deal 30% increased damage. And her other passive makes it so that when you apply cryo to enemies, she restores 10 stamina and gains 18% cryo damage bonus for 10 seconds. Her kit really synergizes with itself nicely. Like, everything just works. And her other passive is actually really useful. You have a 10% chance to receive double products when crafting weapon ascension materials. 10% doesn't sound like a lot, but this is actually really nice. So, as you can see, she attacks really fast, and you can keep dashing into the enemy, applying them with cryo. But there is one thing about her charge attack, is it does have a long animation. Despite how cool looking it is, you do want to animation cancel. And to do that, basically, right when you hit it, you dash. Pretty similar to some other characters. You press the charged attack button and then you dash. You can also jump. But I usually dash because you gotta dash anyways to get that cryo infusion. And here's her in action. You can see some of the stamina regen. There we go. Got the cryo damage bonus. We got the charge attack bonus. Not too bad. Like, her charge attack hits 3 times. Keep that in mind. So those like 7,000 attacks, that's 3 times. One thing that's really awesome about Ayaka is that she can travel over, well, any amount of water. She's the best ice bridge maker in the entire game. All you have to do is dash, and then when you start running low on stamina, kind of just walk around a little bit, use your elemental skill. Your elemental burst also works for this, to make more ice bridges, and then you dash some more. Rinse and repeat, and you can make it across the entire ocean if you so desire. I know this isn't combat related, but it's just a really useful ability for exploring. Another thing about her cryo application is she's the best at breaking shields. Better than Ganyu or anyone else in the game, for that matter. Even those annoying Abyss Heralds. I don't miss that Abyss. I don't miss it at all. But Ayaka is great for dealing with these bastards if they ever do return. Another thing to keep in mind about Ayaka is that she causes a lot of particle effects. As you can see, like, the screen gets pretty fuzzy, but there is a way to remedy this. In case your phone or your computer can't handle it, you go down to here in the graphics settings in SFX and visual effects, turn those down, and the particle effects from the cryo will be lessened by a lot. And this will make it a lot easier on your device if you are struggling. I just thought I'd throw that in here for helpfulness. If only I could remember to use this during my videos. Okay, so here's a comparison between her without Shenhe and with Shenhe. Alright, so we got about 23,000, and the charge attacks are almost 7,000 apiece. 3 times. And we're gonna press Shenhe's attack. Her elemental skill. Boom, that's almost 30k. And the charge attacks, those are 14,000 apiece. So Shenhe is an amazing companion for her. If you already have her, or you plan on getting Ayaka, or you just really love her, I definitely recommend getting Shenhe at some point. As mentioned before, she skills off crit damage as her ascension stat, so you can focus on other things such as more crit damage. Her best weapon being the Mist Splitter Reforged. And the first way I'm going to go over to build her is for a main DPS, or sub DPS, I guess. Because she's just built for being on field. A lot. The passive of Mist Splitter is just insane. It's her best weapon in any scenario. But there are a lot of other choices. The other 5-star choices, the Jade Cutter is great if you're not running a 4-piece Blizzard Strayer and you need some crit chance. Because it also has a really nice passive. The Summit Shaper is good. The Black Sword, the Battle Pass weapon, is also a really nice choice because it increases the amount of charge attack damage you do by, you know, however much percent you have in your refinement. Plus, you restore some HP, and that's never bad. The Alex Flash is okay because it just straight up increases the amount of damage you do, so not bad. And the best craftable weapon you can make is going to be the Aminoma Kaguchi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This sword is actually pretty nasty for a free weapon. And out of all the free-to-play options, I recommend either that or the Blackcliff Longsword. The Skyward Blade is a good choice too. It does have energy recharge, but it's got a little bit of crit rate and a very nice passive. Now let's move on to the artifacts. Her best in slot artifact is going to be 4-piece Blizzard Strayer. But I do not have a good 4-piece Blizzard Strayer because that domain hates me, but I do have decent 2-piece. And you can run 2-piece Blizzard Strayer, 2-piece Gladiator, Shiminawa, or any of the combination of the new artifacts. And that should work just fine. You can also use, like, two-piece emblem, I suppose, if you really want some energy recharge. Or two-piece noblesse for more burst damage. But that's more for a burst setup. And I'll go into that later on in the video. So let's go for what substats you want for her. You're going to want a lot of attack percentage, of course. And you're also going to want a lot of crit rate, crit damage, depending on what you have. If you have a 4-piece Blizzard Strayer, you can just focus on attack and crit damage because you're getting such a huge amount of crit rate with this set. It's 40% against frozen enemies, and usually you're going to be using her to freeze enemies. You're going to want an attack percentage Sans, pretty non-negotiable there, cryo damage Goblet, and a crit rate or crit damage Circlet, whichever you're lacking. It couldn't hurt to get some energy recharge in your substats as well. Now here's a little bit of a showcase of her in action. Just perma-freezing these enemies. Like, they didn't even get to move. And, you know, it works against big characters too, like these Abyss Lectors. She also is great for breaking Electro Shields, not just Hydro Shields. And here is a Melt team. The damage is just absolutely disgusting. This is just such an amazing team. I've run this in Abyss quite a few times. And once you have like Shenhe and Bennett buffing her, her burst just does so much damage. It's pretty crazy. So speaking of, let's talk about teams. The classic team for her is going to be, well, a Morgana type team. I say type team because you don't have to use Venti. You can also use Sucrose or Kazuha, but you don't want a Hydro unit such as Xingqiu or Mona. Diona's great for shields and heals. Shenhe's also fine, and so is Rosaria, or anyone else that you want to use, Kaya. You can also run 2 Hydros if you just want to like keep up the freeze constantly. You can also like make an all cryo team. You just have 1 Anemo and 3 cryo, preferably characters that will buff each other so that you'll get the most out of your mono element. And then of course the freeze teams, where you have Xiangling and Bennett and another cryo character, so that you're getting pyro resonance and cryo resonance. So very powerful. Very powerful team right here. Of course, like anything else, you can mix and match to your liking. These are just my recommendations. So a quick recap of her best gear. Her best in slot is going to be the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer by a mile, because that crit chance is so nice to have. It's very difficult to get on your substats, so very good set if you can get it. But if you're unlucky like me, you'll probably need to go with a 2-piece combo, which can be just fine. You can use, 2-piece Blizzard Strayer, 2-piece Noblesse, Gladiator, Shiminawa, Echoes of an Offering, Vermilion Hereafter. They're all attack percentage, so it's all good stuff. And for her weapons, the Mist Splitter is definitely her best in slot, but there's plenty of other fine choices, such as the Summit Shaper, the Black Cliff Longsword, and the Black Sword. These are probably her second best options. And then you have the Skyward Sword, which is fine. That's a really good sword because it's a 5-star and it has a lot of damage. The Jade Cutter is great if you don't have 4-piece Blizzard Strayer, as it gives a ton of crit chance. And it also has a pretty nice passive. One thing I forgot to mention is that the Harbinger of Dawn can work if you don't have anything else, as it does have crit rate and crit damage. And of course, there's the Amanoma Kaguchi, which is a really great forgeable sword. But what if all you care about is her burst damage? Well, you can run a 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate if you would like. 4-piece Blizzard Strayer is still going to be great, but Emblem of Severed Fate will be really awesome as well. You'll want to focus more on energy recharge in your substats. I wouldn't recommend running an energy recharge Sans, however, but it would be ideal to get a lot on your substats, as you still need attack percentage because it's very valuable. As for weapons, the Mist Splitter is still going to be the best. It's just like perfect for her. But there are some other options that I would not have recommended for a main DPS setup, such as the Skyward Blade. I think I called this a Skyrider sword earlier. Oops, I meant Skyward Blade because this one has energy recharge on it and it has a lot of base attacks, so not a bad choice at all. The Amanoma Kaguchi is also going to be an amazing choice in this situation because of its energy recharge mechanic. And you can run energy recharge weapons, such as Sacrificial Sword or Favonius, as you will be getting a lot of particles. You can attack twice with the Sacrificial Sword, but overall I wouldn't recommend running either of those. She does produce a lot of particles already, so you could produce even more with the Favonius Sword if you so desired. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm just using characters to buff her burst damage, and that is pretty crazy. Got Shenhe, Sucrose, and Bennett. Their purpose is just there to raise the amount of damage she'll do with her burst. And Shenhe to battery. Got Favonius Lance on her for extra particles. You can, of course, run Kazuha, Sayu, Jean, whoever you want for the Viridescent Swirl. And you can also, if you want to, run Ganyu as a main DPS if you have her. And then Ayaka as a sub DPS when you have her burst up. And there's another way that you can use her burst is in all burst damage team, such as with Raiden, Eula, and Yaimiko. But of course you could use like Sara, Beto, whoever you like or have. This is actually a really fun team. It might not be like meta or whatever, but it's really fun because you just bounce ults off each other. So her best sets, as a recap, is going to be the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer once again, and the 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate. All these 2-piece combos, as mentioned before. The best weapons are going to be the Amanoma Kaguchi, Skyrider Sword, or Skyward Blade, whatever it's called, the Mist Splitter, and then of course any of the crit weapons that you may need the crit from, and energy recharge weapons if that's what you have. So let's talk about her constellations. Her first constellation, basically when any of her normal or charge attacks deal cryo damage, it has a 50% chance of reducing the cooldown of her elemental skill. And you're pretty much always dealing cryo, so you'll get more damage overall because you'll be able to cast your elemental skill a lot more often. And that also buffs your normal and charge attacks, so this is actually really synergetic. Would I recommend pulling for that? No. Her Constellation 2, however, actually makes 2 extra, fans of ice when you unleash her burst. They only deal 20% of the original damage, but it's still a huge area of effect. And these tick for 20 times, so it's still a ton of damage. Of course, Constellation 3 raises the power of Kamisato Art Sumetsu. Constellation 4 actually will make enemies that are hit by her burst have reduced defense by 30 seconds. By 30% for 6 seconds. So basically, if you hit them with it, like one of the first shots, the rest of the shots will be more powerful because their defense is down. Constellation 5 just increases her skill, as always, and her Constellation 6, essentially, every 10 seconds, you're going to get a really powerful charge attack you can use. It actually raises the damage of your charge attack by 298%. So, pretty strong. Every 10 seconds, you can hit really hard with that. So, yeah, I hope that you found this guide helpful. I tried to not leave anything out, but I also didn't want to make it too long. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you around. Bye.